What's up, everybody? My name is John Ferry, and welcome to New Zealand Tattoo. Today, I had the great pleasure of talking to Ben Kaye, who's a realism specialist based out of Shipshape in Dairy Flats, Auckland, New Zealand. It was really cool to hear about Ben's journey from the UK to Germany, Malaysia, and then finding himself in New Zealand, where he tattooed from skinks in Hamilton for a little while, joined Shipshape in Orewa, and then became a co-owner with Matt Jordan and Jason Baker and opened the new shop in Dairy Flats. Please, if you like this conversation, do subscribe to the channel, like the video, and look out for all the conversations coming up.
Hey.
Yes. Hey, man.
Just working.
Beautiful. How professional are you?
Oh, mate, I've got the whole setup.
Good job.
Got a light on me. I'm looking all pretty.
I've got a light on me, but I've had to stop wearing the glasses here just because it was just bounces, it just goes everywhere. It's just white on my eyes. Looks good.
Good.
Well done. And so prompt, smack on 7 o'clock. Well done.
Oh yeah, I've just been sat here.
Just cruising. Okay.
Oh, no, I was doing some work and I finished it early, and then I was just like, well, I'm not going to go in the house.
Just waiting.
I didn't need to make that weird, but yeah, I've been logged in for a good 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's because I was doing other stuff.
Nice.
I'm not that guy. How's it going?
I love the backdrop, man. You got a lot of stuff happening behind you.
Oh yeah, the remnants.
That's all product placement.
Yes. Yes.
I'm doing the same.
Yeah, bit of quadrone, bit of shine.
Yeah, good, man.
Quadrone these days, but it's good.
I thought I'd do the same for you. Just I'll just go like this.
Oh, I've got one of those somewhere.
I'll do that, there, and I'll do this as well. That
bit of reference.
Yeah, there we go.
Hey, look, there's the other. That's Stan
model. Yeah,
there you go.
Epic.
Cool, man.
Cool, man. Hey, thanks so much for doing this, man.
Invited me.
Oh, mate, like I would have invited you sooner, but I just had to pluck up the courage. It's a conversation that I've been wanting to have for a very long time, but I'm super glad that you were so quick to say yes. It's awesome.
Talking to it's one of the things you miss about conventions and stuff. Is just yarning with other terrorists. So
yeah,
it's good.
Cool, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, epic.
I've been looking forward to this.
I've been ever since you said yes. I've been trying to track down some information about you, and fortunately, it's few and far between on the internet. So it'd be nice to actually find out a bit about your background, the journey, the young Ben, and how you got into everything, and kind of obviously where you're at the moment. If you're cool to chat.
Yeah, I used to have a really long bio that had all of that on it.
Okay.
And yeah, on my website it was like this, but I don't know why I took that down, but I should do something with that. Would you just want me to start from the beginning?
You like wherever you want to take it. The best way I usually start these is just like, what's a young Ben doing? You're obviously from the UK, so whereabouts did you grow up?
So I was born in Manchester, and then we moved around a lot. We moved around like every 3 years or something. So I spent some time in Coventry and teens in Birmingham, and then back up to not Manchester, but kind of in between Manchester and Sheffield in a place called Glossop, in a tiny place called Padfield. Lots of frogs, toads, but that was good. Yeah, and then
why were you moving around so much? Was it military or something? Or
they just moved around a lot. That was just the family. They just moved, and then my parents separated, so they all moved. Like dad moved every 3 years and mum moved every 3 years. So they just moved a lot. I don't really know why.
Hectic.
And then I moved a lot. So that just carries on.
Yeah.
And then I went to school and then finished school, and then I was a baker. But I sort of did art in school and then really wanted to do something artistic.
Yeah.
But just couldn't really work it out. So ended up being a baker. At a Tesco. So I wasn't even like, I joke that I'm a baker, or I tell people I'm a baker, because they're always amazed after you're a Taoist, what you did before, but really it was plant bread baking. So it was like in a supermarket, and it was, I can't bake for shit, so I don't.
You're a mixer, and then you just chuck stuff in.
Yeah, I can mix it. If you give me everything in the right proportions, I can mix it up.
Hey man, it's coming through like with this ink set. It's obviously still going.
That was a lot like baking. Yeah, that was fun. We did that in the kitchen too.
Yeah, nice. So how old were you when you left school and became a baker?
17, 18.
Yeah, okay, so you saw it through. And so were you into art, doing art through that time, obviously at school as well?
I did some, yeah. I think I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then I got tattooed, and then it just blew my mind. I remember I went with a friend who we don't talk to anymore and haven't talked to in, like, I don't know, since I was about 20, since I left England, really. But he works in the industry now as well. He's like a studio manager. But we went and got my first tattoo together, and I think we were both just mind blown and sort of left with all these questions about, like, especially about rubber bands. We were amazed about rubber bands and like, why is that? What's happening there? You know? So I just left with so many questions. And then I went about it in like the worst way possible, and like brought a tattoo machine off of eBay, tattooed my leg and my fingertip for some reason, tattooed one or two friends, took some photos, traced some stuff from Google, had this portfolio, this huge amount of images that were just traced and colored in, and then took them around shops trying to get a job, which didn't go well. Didn't go well at all. They all said no. So I was like, oh, okay, right, I'll give up. And then I was going to join the army. And then my dad was like, you should travel before you join the army. So then I decided to travel instead. So then I went and I lived in Japan, and we went over there. I was going to be over there for like 3 months. I ended up being over there for like a year. And then came back to England, then decided, because I met this girl and she was, all about like, you should capture your dream and it would be amazing. So I started applying for jobs again, couldn't get a job in England again. And then got a job in Malaysia. So I went over there and learnt to tattoo in Malaysia for about 9 months or a year. That was pretty hectic. It was a bit fucked up, but it was cool. There was, every apprenticeship has like good parts and bad parts. It was very like throw a machine at you and run with it type apprenticeship.
Yeah.
But I got a lot from it, I think, in the end, and then moved back to Europe, did a few months in Madrid, then got a job in Germany. And I got a job in a place called Sala, which is beautiful part of Germany, in the north. And then moved a little bit further away to Bergen, which is like half an hour away. And that's next to the biggest British army base outside of the UK. So I was just tattooing army guys. And then I ran that studio for a bit. And then I moved to New Zealand.
Jesus, there is so much to dissect there, man. Far out. And that's your history in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's the quick version.
That's insane.
There's some weird stories in between.
I would imagine like there's some decent travel in there.
Yeah. I was pretty into it.
What were you doing?
I came over here for like 6 weeks. Sorry?
Okay. What were you doing in Japan for a year?
I just wanted to go. I mean, I wanted to go as far away from England as possible, but I didn't want to go to Australia.
Yeah, I was going to say, most people just go straight to Aussie. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was determined not to go to Australia. I thought, because I had never really traveled outside of Europe, I sort of thought Australia might be sort of cheating, because it's very culturally similar to England.
Yeah.
So I was like, right. And I didn't really plan on being away for that long. I was sort of planned on, I had enough money for like a few months. If I didn't get a job, I was just going to go home. I had to move my flights, and a lot of it came down to I got a job, met a girl, and then was like, yeah, cool, I'll just stay.
Cool. Was she a Japanese girl? Or?
Nah, she was American.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's hectic, man. And so, like you said, you obviously came back to England to try to source a job in tattooing, but you got one in Malaysia.
Yeah. Well, as soon as you traveled a little bit, like it was really daunting going over to Japan, but then as soon as you've done it and you've kind of, I didn't have any money there. Like we lived out of like 100 yen shop. Like we had no money. Yeah. And there was a point where I basically just lived with her because I couldn't afford to rent anywhere, and I was jobless for a bit of it. But doing that, having that experience just opens up the world.
Yeah,
into
absolutely.
This, everything's much more accessible. So the idea of, after living in Japan, the idea of like, well, I don't have to stay in my little town with my mum and dad. I can just, be like really poor, but I can just go somewhere else and do it over there, you know? And so Malaysia kind of didn't feel as far away after traveling. So I just started looking for jobs anywhere basically. And then there was one in over there.
Hectic, man. And so that was your first studio job, yeah?
It was, yeah.
Rad.
Yeah, that was the first studio job.
Amazing.
It was cool. It was in a mall, and it's in a place called JB Jarabara, on the border with Singapore.
Nice.
That was really cool.
Yeah, rad. And yeah, like obviously, yeah, having spent so much time in Japan, the culture shock in terms of just talking to people in general wouldn't be as huge. So getting a clientele probably didn't take too long once you're actually on the machines, right?
It wasn't that kind of thing. Like I didn't have a clientele.
Okay.
Like, I just tattooed. There were a lot of tattooists in the shop, and I just tattooed. We basically just took turns.
Wow.
And like people that wanted more advanced stuff went to the owner, and there was an Australian guy there as well, and that kind of helped with all the cultural stuff, you know.
Yeah, There
was one Australian guy there, and then the owner, she'd spent a lot of time in and out of Australia as well, so she had that kind of cultural understanding as well.
Yeah, cool.
So that makes a big difference, having somebody that you can go to and talk to about those kind of more shocking cultural stuff was good, and someone who can just be straight up with you and be like, don't do that, that's a bad idea.
Yeah, don't say that, don't. Yeah, okay. And so
he was a bit of a loony. Like I remember we must have been the only white people in this neighborhood for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 blocks. It wasn't like the traditional area where the white guys lived. Yeah. And he's fully tattooed, and he's pierced his own cheeks and shit like this, and he's got his whole throat done. I think he had some stuff on his head, you know, properly heavily tattooed, which is already a rarity in Asia, you know.
Yeah.
And then he's also like a pretty tall Australian white guy, and he would play like cannibal rap music at the mall really early in the morning, and he carved and this is, you got, the other thing was we were in between like an Indian temple and there was a Catholic-y type church down the road, and he carved like a pentagram in the front of the wall in front of the house, you know. So just even more like, hey, you know, he would do stuff like that. So yeah, it was out there.
That's hectic. And so when you came back to England, how long were you tattooed in England before you actually went over to do the Europe piece, Germany, and were you
I didn't even tattoo in England.
Oh no, you didn't.
No.
Oh wow.
So I saw it went Japan back to England for like a few months, and then straight to Malaysia. Okay. So I've only actually tattooed in England really in the last like 4 or 5 years.
Oh man.
So the second half of the career, and really not for very long. Like I've done 1 or 2 really, really small guest spots, and I did London twice. Okay.
Hectic, man. And so what prompted the I'd love to actually, like, before I go into the move to New Zealand, I'm so keen to, when you got your first tattoo, when you came out of there with questions about the rubber bands, like that's really astute to, like, in that crazy moment of getting your first tattoo, to like focus on these little things like rubber bands and come out with questions. I remember getting my first by Brent McCohen in Auckland, and I walked out going, man, those gloves suck. And that was it. That's all I remember. Like the pain of the tattoo was gone. It was just the gloves really hurt, and that was it, you know? It's really interesting.
Yeah. That is interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. What a crazy thing to kind of focus on, going, like, oh, they use rubber bands. Maybe that was it, kind of going, oh, I've got those at home.
Just didn't know. I don't know. We were sort of feeding off one another. But I mean, it was cool. Like it was old school kind of guy who'd been around for a long time, you know, and it was pretty classic. You had to ring up and leave a message to book an appointment. He wasn't open unless he was tattooing. Yeah, he had loads of alien stuff and loads of predator stuff in there. He had he put his motorbike inside the shop, and you could smoke in there. And everything I got from him was like a pick off the wall job, you know? Yeah, cool. It was rad. Yeah, right. So what prompted the move to New Zealand? Well, I'd lived in Germany for a long time, and well, not a long time, I guess. It'd been like 3 years. and then before that it was Madrid for a while, and then before that it was Malaysia, and then before that it was Japan. It was like 5 or 6 years of being away from like just English speaking things. I think was a big thing. And I every time I was in a country, I never really took the time to learn the language. And one of the reasons for that is I never really thought I was ever going to be there very long.
Yeah,
you know. So Germany was the same. Like I got to Germany, I was like, oh, I'm going to be here like a year. And that's it. And then so it was like, oh, well, I don't need to learn German. I'll just get along and it's fine. And then I was also next to a big English army base. So a lot of people, and that had been there since the Second World War. So a lot of people around there spoke English, understood what was going on, you know, and so I never learned it. And then you kind of really detached from everything. Yeah. And when you're next to a big army base, everyone you know and hang around with is in the army. Your selection of people you can spend time with and meet, as well as the things you can do, kind of just get a bit limited. And I think I kind of got over that, but I still didn't want to live in England.
Got you.
So it was either Canada or New Zealand.
Okay.
And I just went to New Zealand because my mum actually moved over here when I went to Malaysia. She moved over here. Yeah. So I came over to visit her and kind of decide whether I wanted to live here. Yeah. And then I went to Skinks. So those guys in Hamilton. Yeah. And it was rad. Because before as well, like Malaysia was kind of, the other thing about it was I was really detached from any kind of tattoo culture, you know, because I'd been to like 1 or 2 European conventions, but I didn't really know the other tattooists. I knew like there was Nigel, who was amazing. He was like just old school. He was an old Welsh fella. And he'd moved to Germany like 20 something years ago, and he'd been tattooing for like 35 years. And he'd tell you these crazy stories about tattooing in toilets at like scooter things in the fucking 70s and shit. Like, it was just crazy stories. And, you know, the stuff he knew was just epic. The way he thought about business and stuff was so like old school tattooist, you know. But he was a much older fella. Sure. Who was kind of detached from the tattoo scene anyway. And then there was another guy called Jim, who'd basically been in the army all his life and then tattooed in the army and then got out of there. So I was really detached from tattoo culture at all. So going to Skinks and seeing people that like were just in that and living it was amazing. Cool. To me.
Yeah, rad. Is that where your mum was living, in Hamilton?
Yeah, she was living in between Hamilton and Ragland.
Yeah, okay, nice. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
You're rad. And so obviously, like, were you able to pick up work straight away? Were you able to get into a studio?
That's where Skinks.
Yeah, were you straight into Skinks? Were you?
Yeah.
Dope.
Yeah. Epic. Skinks. That was rad.
And so how long ago was that?
And then, huh?
How long ago was that?
2013.
Got it. Cool.
So 8 years.
And through this whole time that you're tattooing through all these countries, are you still quite arty in the background? Are you still painting or drawing for stuff outside of tattooing?
No,
not at all.
I've only ever done like 2 oil paintings.
No way.
And I did try and do a drawing course once, but I really just didn't like it.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoyed tattooing. I enjoyed the physical, like trying to learn how to do it. I'm not massively interested in learning how to paint or so at the moment, you know. I'm always like, I'll do it in the future. Maybe that's the retirement thing, you know.
Yeah.
But no.
That's so interesting to know, especially with the types of people that you surround yourself these days, that you're like still not really picking it up. That's quite cool. I would have thought that you'd be influenced, especially with the seminars, you know, having Andy there for a seminar, and obviously Matt and just all the guys up there focusing on painting so much.
Yeah, you think I would. It's a really difficult one because it's around you, you know. Like the point I decided I really didn't want to paint anymore was actually kind of at one of Andy's seminars, and I was kind of painting, and I just get so frustrated with it, and I just don't have it in me to get through that frustration at the moment. I think that's one of the things, but that's why I enjoy photography.
I was going to ask.
I really enjoy that, but it's a lot more instant, and it's a lot more yeah, I don't know. It's just a lot more fun, I think.
Also, kind of a lot more in your you're in control of that. You know, there's obviously variables, but you've got that one thing that you just have to focus on moving, rather than this moving thing with pallets. And yeah, it's
yeah, there's definitely that, and it's just yeah. I think one of the reasons I don't enjoy, or I did really enjoy doing those two paintings, and I did them, and then what happened was I did those two, and they were kind of one of them's a tattoo machine and one of them's a stencil, like half peeled off a hand.
Yeah.
And then a third one I was going to do, which was like I sort of started it but never finished it in the end, and it was somebody tattooing Jacob from Skinks, him tattooing a flamingo on some guy's leg.
Yeah.
And halfway through sort of setting that up, I decided I was going to do them as prints and do like a set of 3 as prints. And then as soon as I made it work, I just ruined it.
Lost
and I
interest,
just never wanted to finish it. And I've got, like, I started this flower thing. You see that in the background?
Yeah.
Like, the missus really likes that and she wants me to finish it, but that's like, I started that before I had kids. So that's like 7 years old, 6 or 7 years old, you know?
Good.
I don't think I'm ever going to finish it, but she won't let me throw it away.
Yeah, got you. Is it? Do you find yourself not really having the patience for canvases that aren't skin?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I like personally, I find myself I'm shocking at anything that's not skin. I'm not fantastic with skin anyway, but if it comes down to something flat that's not moving, that doesn't have an interaction with me, I can't attach myself to and then see it through. It's really weird. There's a boredom that comes on really quick.
Well, yeah, I think there's lots of things with tattooing that drive you to sort of finish it, isn't there?
Yeah, oh, very much so. Yeah,
you've got this time scale. This person is sat there wanting it done. Yeah, those kind of things. See, I don't have those.
Yeah.
Like if this painting in the corner was yelling at me because I'd left it unfinished for like 8 years, then I'd probably finish it or something, you know. But there's definitely, I enjoy tattooing. I enjoy physically tattooing, and there's something about painting that definitely blocks me.
Yeah.
So no.
Hectic. Yeah. So I'm a really big fan of unfinished tattoos, but I have to keep telling myself that 99% of people aren't. So I have to make sure I get in there and try to finish stuff.
You just like them when you get to a certain point and you like it as is, or you're just like, I like it just not being finished. I love the fact that there's that's not done. Like that's quite clearly still needs more. And I'm like, yeah, but that's cool. I don't know why. It's kind of weird. Probably because most of the stuff on me is half finished. That's right. That's a new style, man. Just
maybe
come up with a fancy name and then boom.
Just half words and
yeah.
Just a TBC throughout. Yeah. So like back to your tattoo, and like how long were you at Skinks in Hamilton?
Gonna try and make me remember things.
Yeah. This is chronological. I'm trying, but we keep jumping forward.
3 years, maybe.
Cool. Yeah.
Maybe.
So
we'll go with that.
Was the transition to Shipshape from there?
Yes. So cool. then I came up to Shipshape, back when it was the old Shipshape in Orewa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I think 2 years in or something, Matt wanted to go bigger, so then he brought me and Jason in as owners. Yeah, and then we moved to the new Shipshape.
Yeah, dope.
And I think that's been 2 or 3 years, I think.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful space you guys got up there, man. It's epic.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's really nice to be back. I mean, we've been back like 3 days, and it's nice.
Are you just Monday to Friday up there?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, nice. So with your Skinks work, were you pretty like attracted to color pretty quickly, and obviously like what you're doing in Germany and stuff, and then when you got to New Zealand, were you kind of focusing on color? Were you just kind of street shop, just whatever walked in? Was there kind of a plan that you were kind of map out?
Sorry, I shouldn't have started eating that ice.
Is that a whiskey? Is it you having a whiskey?
No, I'm having gin. I like gin now. I'm super. The lockdown got me into gin.
So good.
Yeah, gin's a good time. In Germany, I did a lot of walking stuff, and then a lot of that's when I started to focus on color stuff. Was Germany, And then at Skinks, it took a while to build up a little bit of a clientele, but not particularly too long.
Okay.
And then that's when I really focused in on like solid color realism instead of just
cool.
like things that were a little bit realistic but not quite, you know.
Yeah.
I went through a slight new schoolish kind of phase on and off.
Cool. Was there a piece?
Yeah,
that
that's when I really focused in, and I started giving away free portraits. That was the first time I started really doing that for color stuff.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I was going to say if there was a transitional piece that you remember doing that you kind of go, this is kind of where I want to head, especially with the portraiture stuff.
There was a Darth Maul that I did. That was the first time that I used green and red, and then kind of mix those together to start muting out colors and to make some richer, deeper colors. Cool. And that was a big game changer, like just for me, but also for like people noticing the work as well, and people wanting to get tattooed and get that kind of stuff, and getting like a little bit more freedom. And it really only took that one piece, and it was really focusing on, I don't even remember, I must have seen something somewhere, but just focusing on that kind of color mixing. Yeah. And that worked out really well.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about your color theory, because obviously with what you, obviously a lot of it's kind of in the moment sort of stuff, like mixing greens and reds and just not having such bright full on colors, kind of making them a bit more earthy and realistic looking. Was that, were you studying any sort of theory behind it? Was it just more trial and error?
It's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm a particularly good student.
Okay.
I think it's just better I just get more from just thinking about it and analyzing what I'm doing and then actually doing it than I do from trying to take it from another source, you know?
Right.
But I've definitely gone through phases. Like I definitely did stuff that was very, very high contrast and focused on that. And then I shifted towards, right, everything's got to be as realistic as possible and really, really muted, and a lot of off-whites and a shit ton of grays, you know, whether they're muted different tonal grays or, you know, all these different things.
Yeah.
And then I kind of swang round and kind of merged the two together. So it's a bit more like it shifted a little bit too far to the muted stuff, you know. So I sort of pulled it back, and then so that was cool. And now I do a lot of black and gray now, to be honest. Yeah,
I've seen some of the larger scale stuff that you've been doing. Obviously, the black and gray stuff. It's quite good. Are those opaques? Are you just kind of doing gray wash?
No, I'm just doing grey wash.
Cool.
I'm really interested in kind of pushing that at the moment.
Rad.
I don't really know why, but that's just the way I sort of feel at the moment. So I mean, I'm getting like black and grey is easy work to sort of get compared to color. You know, a lot more people want it. That's just the reality of it. So I'm definitely kind of, I got a little bit more, and then I just kind of really, really got into it. But there was a point where I wasn't taking on any black and gray. Yeah. And then when I first got to Shipshape, I wasn't taking on any color either. So I sort of did color at Skinks. And then when I moved up to Shipshape, I was watching like Steve and a few other people that came and stopped by and was like, nah, fuck that. I'm just going to do black and gray. I like black and gray. And then did one or two color pieces. So I feel like if you focus on one for a bit and then swap over to another, you give yourself a sort of break, but also it makes the other one better from what you've learned doing the other one. You know, I don't think I'd be as good a color artist if I hadn't have spent that time really working on the black and gray and getting that kind of, you know, high contrast and an understanding of those values down first in black and gray.
Did you with the when you were first in kind of Shipshape going to that black and gray stuff, did you just start creeping the color in from there after doing a lot, or did you just kind of, you know, just start going just go in? Okay. How was that? It must have been so tough.
It was a really intimidating thing to do. So I just sort of jumped in, I think I got some of my own designs ready, and then did a big consult day and had them printed out on the table, and people came in and I'd try and, you know, see if they wanted these ones I'd designed. And then a few people took them. And then those pieces where I hadn't done color for a long period of time, were really the ones that just blew up.
Cool.
And really took the career like in that direction.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's when I started doing just calves, because I used to just do calves all the time.
All legs, yeah.
The calf guy.
Yeah, and flames, right?
Yeah, well, one of those was the Flaming Church.
Yeah.
Which is one of like
such
the
a cool
pieces
piece.
that people talk about a lot. That was one of those pieces that was designed, put out at a consult day, and then Harley got it. This guy. So yeah. And that piece really blew up. And in reality, that piece is incredibly, it looks good, but it's not particularly complicated.
Yeah.
You know, compared to some of the stuff I've done in the last couple of years, especially color-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, but it just blew up. And then
those stunning pieces, right?
More and more people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's those stunning like high contrast pieces that catch the eye. Yeah. So was it just Steve doing full color realism at the Oriwa shop?
Yeah,
pretty much, eh? So you must have had a lot of business from then on. Yeah,
once he left, like there was an opening for it as well. I think I saw that opportunity.
Yeah,
so there's always opportunity whenever a studio changes slightly. There's always opportunity.
Yeah. So how was the move to Dairy Flats for you guys? Obviously down from Oriwa. Was it quite a lengthy process? Because it's a hell of a spot you guys have got now. So there must have been, so
it took a year to finish.
3 years.
No, it took a year to finish.
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay.
So we did. We got the place a few months before we had to move in, and we did the tunnel, or what we call the shaft. So we did the shaft, got that finished, so we could tattoo in the shaft, and then did the next part. That took like a few months, and then did the front. That took a hell of a lot longer. I don't think we put a sign up until a couple of days before the 1 year anniversary.
Okay, yeah.
So for the first year, you had to walk through this. And what happened was, because I was like, oh, we're going to do it, it'll happen really quickly. So in the front room, one of the first things we did was rip down the roof. So it was just like the cables, and it was one of those like office ones with the, you know what I mean? With the gray squares. So we ripped all that down. So for the first year, it was just this kind of mess above you. And you had to walk through this construction site, kind of derelict building to get to the studio, which I thought was really cool. But it's better now. Now we've fixed it.
I remember.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, but I agree. I think it looks really cool. I quite like having that. It feels almost underground. You know what you're going, like where you're walking into.
Yeah,
it's quite cool.
It's kind of spooky, and it's kind of the opposite as well. And I like the way we had to get through it, and the fact that we had no sign really helped that as well. So you definitely see people kind of doing this around the corner.
Yeah.
Like just checking they weren't going to get murdered or robbed or something. That was cool.
Just stopping to get a pie and maybe a tattoo, I think. And...
Yeah. Well, I don't know what's here. That's cool.
How are you finding up there? You've got a hell of a group of people up there that you're working with.
It's great. It's a really nice space. Yeah, no, it's rad. Awesome. I can't say anything else apart from it's fucking cool.
Yeah, cool, man.
Yeah.
Are you obviously, did you tattoo today?
Yeah, started a lion piece today, so that was good. Nice big lion. So cool. I like that. In black and grey too. So that's
cool. Yeah, I was going to ask, like, if with I would imagine the prep time for these sorts of tattoos is probably a little bit less. And what sort of black and grey stuff have you got coming up?
I don't know. My calendar's been so shuffled and so randomized. Like I'm enjoying it. Like the odd thing is, because I haven't done like a lot of black and grey lions over the last couple of years, I'm sort of enjoying doing stuff that gets shunned on a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I took on a Greek sleeve at the end of last year that I finished. And it's like the classic ones, but I haven't tattooed them in black and grey for so long. Some of those statues are actually kind of fun to tattoo.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so there's a reason why they're popular, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So like doing that kind of stuff has been a bit more fun, and then I can practice my fur. I'm very into practicing and just refining things. So in essence, it really doesn't matter what I tattoo, as long as, like with the black and grey at the moment, it really doesn't matter what I tattoo. It's just so I can sort of like refine those techniques for doing certain things. So
when you're in the middle of doing something like the black and grey, are are you actively thinking about how you would transition what you're doing into a color piece? Because obviously the application is quite a lot different with just blacks and grays and stuff, but rather than, you know, saturating some color. Is that something that you would eventually want to take into any like sort of more detailed piece with colors, or you can't try to keep them fully separate?
So I keep them fully separate. I think from what I was doing today, because I was doing a lot of like flowy fur around a kind of, what do you call that on a cat? You know, this kind of part in a cat with the whiskers, and there's kind of, it's actually kind of bumpy in the picture I've got, and it's got a lot of the structure in there.
Yeah, cool.
So the only thing I'd really take from doing that piece today into a color piece would be like, because black and gray, it's a lot more flowy. It's a lot less, right? You have to really concentrate on saturating one color in one precise part, and then make sure you feather it out correctly so you can put something on top, right? So black and gray is a lot more flowy, a lot more you can go back into it and refine it. And just the kind of the way the mag kind of makes a lot of that fur texture, I think that's something I'd take. Because in color, I think I'd go in with probably like a round shader and maybe try and do that.
Yeah, got you.
So I was actually thinking about that today, because it's just black and gray is a lot easier to kind of mag and flow, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you ever get the opportunity for those sorts of little details to get in there after you've done a full saturation and it's healed? Do you get people coming back to like just get those tiny little things in that you might not be able to get on a day when you're breaking the skin like that?
I'm lucky enough to do large pieces. Yeah. So I purposely aim with a lot of color pieces to go back into it at a later date.
Cool.
But that's something like the traveling kind of limits you when you're doing that. Yeah. So, but here, especially in New Zealand, like if I'm doing a full leg, like I did a mermaid tattoo on Ollie. Cool, thanks. Yeah, he's a great client, and he's super open to what you're doing. So almost everything on that mermaid has been tattooed, healed, and then tattooed again. And parts like the face and the arms and some of the joining parts between where she actually turns into a mermaid tail, where that joins. Yep. That's been tattooed like 3 or 4 times and just refined once it's healed. Cool. Because it's not always 100% predictable. Yeah. It's better just to refine it if you can, you know? Yeah. But that basically, it gets a little bit, because sometimes you end up doing 5 sessions with a client and you churn through all of it, and it looks finished, but you're going to spend the next 3 sessions like going through and refining it and adding more, and you know. Yeah, cool. But I purposely make sure that I do that with a lot of those pieces now. Yeah, it makes a big difference, huge difference.
I would imagine, yeah. And what's your consultation kind of like not system, but like what's the lead into such a big piece like that mermaid piece between you and the client? Is the back and forth, does it go on for a while, or is there just a one-day design and then next day let's crack into it?
I really enjoy talking to clients and kind of getting like a rough idea down. Yeah. I think a back and forth at that stage is really important. Yeah. Cool. So I'll do phone consults. I used to do in-person ones, and I really want to start doing them again. So I think I'm going to do a big, at the moment, I'm kind of changing the way I take on appointments and do consult days and stuff. So we're just kind of working that out at the moment. Yeah, cool. But I think that part is really important. But then when it actually comes down to the design, I don't want to back and forth over it, you know? So I'll wait for them, I'll design it like a week before and fine tune it over the week before their appointment. And then when they come in, I'll sit down and talk to them about exactly why. Because I find people don't fully grasp like the fact that something's 2-dimensional and then you're trying to put it on something 3-dimensional. Yeah. And those choices about like muscle structure and stuff. Because that mermaid, the design for that doesn't look great. Yeah. Because it's kind of like a weird shape. Yeah. You know, it's not great looking on an iPad. But then once you print it off and wrap it around, it works really nicely. Yeah. And that kind of thing is really hard to describe to people. Yeah, cool, man. And your day one with most of those big sorts of things, are you like bloodlining? Are you kind of getting the whole thing mapped in with darks, or are you just going step by step? So I find like being flexible with it is super important. So I don't have like a set answer. It's all of those. Yeah, sure. Depending on the piece. Yeah. Like I've done, like I did a giant space leg, and we did the first 2 days was just like a really, really quick stencil. And then we did the whole thing with a 27 mag black and gray, like really, really quickly to get all the kind of, because there were really big fades of color.
Yeah.
So if I had those in black and gray first, putting the color on top of them, I already sort of had that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to work as hard to do it in color. So that was the choice for that. And there's actually still, if you look at that space leg that I did with the astronaut on the top of the thigh, there's quite a few bits of black and gray that still stand out, because once I'd done the color for the light part of a planet, the black and gray parts looked good. So I just left it.
Yeah, dope. I've looked at that piece quite a few times, just going, how the fuck do you do that? Like, just in terms of not the process of tattooing, but just the mapping, because there's so much happening in that thing.
Yeah, well, that was just completely black and grayed out, 27
cool.
you know. And then there's a whale back piece, and that was done like
that with the big turquoise loop. There's quite a lot of
like a triangle, and it's got like some space fire stuff around it. So that piece was done by doing like most of the midtones in color, and then later on we did a lot of black, and then we also did highlights a lot later on. And that was just another way of mapping it in. Yeah. So and then there's the more traditional way, and now like with the mermaid, it was kind of like, I think it was mids and then darks and then highlights and then some darks where it's more obvious.
Yeah, sure.
And then what we're doing is other leg now, and we're just doing sections. So we did a lady's face, and then there's a fox underneath, and we did the whole fox. Cool. You know, because it's a lot easier to break up. Yeah. There's a lot less of her in it. She doesn't fade into anything else. You know, it's very, very like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, sure.
And then there's a badger. So just like being flexible in how I approach it, and kind of going with whatever the piece is.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, that's cool. It's such a privilege to have clients like that. That must be amazing.
Well, they don't hear any of this, so they're just like, I'm just going to do this, and then they're like, yeah, cool. Yeah. They know it's as long as they know it's a process, then you're all right, I think. You know. Yeah,
I would imagine is that a big part of your working days is explaining to people kind of how long these things actually take?
Yeah, I explain that it's a commitment. That's a big thing, because I'm also slower than I was. Like I've slowed down in my tattooing over the last like maybe 3 years.
Got it.
But yeah, I say it's a commitment, and just make sure that they fully understand that it's a commitment.
Yeah, sure.
And then talk to them about how realistic it is to do it within like a year or something, you know. Yeah. And then if it's not, like I don't force clients into doing, like the mermaid leg was a bit crazy because for a long time it didn't look anywhere near finished, you know. Yeah. But like the piece we're doing on him now, he said he was going to have a break, so we just aimed to get like the front of his leg really finished really quite quickly, and then we're going to mess around with the other side after he's had a break, you know. Yeah. So there's stuff like that where you sort of you can be like, right, well, we'll just do your thigh, and everything else is designed and planned out, but you know, once you leave, you're going to have a thigh piece.
Yeah, sure.
And then when you come back in a year, we'll do your calf, you know.
Yeah. I think a lot of people kind of struggle with that is leaving someone with a half finished piece. I think a lot of people want to get to a like, especially if you're doing a whole side of leg, you want it to look somewhat finished and a whole piece, and then be able to tighten everything up later. And I think a lot of people kind of rush to that. We're kind of doing what you're saying. Let's get that done and then work into that. It probably trips a lot of people up trying to go and want to get this done in the next, in the first couple of sessions, so you don't look like a dickhead walking around with, just a tail. And,
yeah. Well, the worst thing for people is having to explain their tattoo, right?
Yeah.
Like I find clients really don't like that, and it doesn't make you look good if they spend a year and they have to explain every single part of it to people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really hard one, because it just comes down to what works best for whatever you're doing, you know?
Yeah, cool, man. So how often are you using your own photography for most of the tattoos you're doing these days?
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
Like I go in and out of it. Like if there's an opportunity to use my own photography, then I will.
Sure.
Or if there's an opportunity, like I'm working with a client at the moment, and he the tattoo is all about Reiki, you know, the kind of healing bit. So, and he does it. So we took pictures of his hands and used those in the tattoo, you know. And then he also wanted a skull, a certain skull in there of an animal that he'd hunted. So he brought that in, and then I took photos of that. I haven't posted any of those pictures. It's not finished. I've still got to do the inside of his thigh and stuff. But you know, so taking that opportunity, or if people have got dogs, then I'll take pictures of the dogs and stuff like that. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm at the moment, I'm kind of, I've definitely let clients sort of take that, you know. Not what am I trying to say? You know what I mean.
It sounds as though you're letting people come to the table with a lot more than you maybe would have a few years ago.
Yes,
not so much of a control thing, but you obviously had what you wanted to do, and you kind of move them towards that direction rather than going, you know, what do you want to do kind of thing, and bring what you can to the table.
And that's one of the things I think I've sort of noticed. So that's why we're sort of changing things, because I also want to get back to doing some of that stuff. Everything goes in waves, and things kind of build.
Yeah.
And I find that in my career, and I think everyone's like this, you know, you sort of start something, or you start an idea, and then it gets to a certain point, and then you realize that you've gone a little bit too far with it. Not really, really far where it's bad, but you just want to pull it back a bit.
Yeah.
So I think I've sort of getting to that point now with the way that that's kind of working, and I plan on, this is the first time in my career I'm going to close my books and like not take on any other appointments, and then in like April, because I'm booked till June, because everything's got rearranged as well. So you end up being booked out ridiculously.
Yeah.
And I've got all this stuff to finish. So I'm going to finish all this stuff, and then maybe in like May or June, I'll do like 2 or 3 consult days. I'm going to have some designs done. I'm going to only take on creative freedom pieces and portraits. And I'm going to really hard shift it the other way, and then see what happens with that, you know? So hopefully that goes really well. Because I've got months to do a shit ton of designs and
the prep,
and do sort of stuff that I want to do again, which I don't really know what that is, so we'll find out.
I was going to ask, is you not too sure of the direction yet?
No.
Cool.
I really want to mix. I did this one piece that I found that I really, really enjoyed. It didn't quite go off the way I wanted it to, so you might not have seen it. But it's I did it in America, and it's a statue in red with these kind of futuristic lines on it. But it's red into like white peach. It's all the way down a leg. And I posted it a long, long time ago. And I really, really enjoyed tattooing it. It was super challenging because it had all these kind of tones in it. And it like visually it works. I didn't finish it. I haven't finished the inside yet. But it works really, really well. And it's something that I really want to sort of go in that direction and sort of push that. Sure. So maybe take themes that I know people are going to like statues and Greek mythology and stuff, and just push them further the way that I want to do, which is kind of like neon-y and maybe a bit more futuristic.
Yeah, cool.
But no, I don't know. But I think I'm kind of, after this lockdown, I kind of feel a bit more inspired to do something, find whatever it is that is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, like, I really love when you mix up your kind of neo-trad with realism. That stuff is sensational. You know, a realism piece, and then you start throwing in these things with just big, heavy black outlines and nice flat designs. Really, like, epic. Especially when, you know, kind of, is it I'm going to forget his name. Maybe it's Yogi Barrett. I think that's and he does that, you know, he's like just amazing mashups.
Yeah, I would love to do more stuff like that. I whenever I post about it, I don't get asked for it.
Oh, no way.
Like people just don't seem to. Taoists love it.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy it, but it doesn't seem to go off. So I can't get much more of it, which is a real shame. Like collectors will get it.
Yeah.
Because I've done a few pieces that are like Japanesey, like mishmash.
Yeah.
But so I haven't. Yeah, it's hard to kind of get stuff.
Sure. And so what's the kind of just going back to that photography side of things, obviously you haven't been able to do as much as you'd like. I have to ask, because I love the website, the reference 87. What was the genesis of that? Was that just you going, I feel like a lot of people could use these, or was it discussions with other artists? Or like where did that all start?
A big part of that was like Shipshape in itself, and the way like photography was it wasn't super common, but you know, Steve and Matt would take pictures of skulls for their own tattoos and that kind of stuff, but in a really kind of like just with a tattoo lamp and a skull and your phone, somebody holding a torch, you know. So it was kind of an expansion of that, so that I could do my own stuff. And I remember I did a black and grey sleeve that had Stan in it, who's on your wall.
And
he's holding a rose and he's got a cloak on. And then once I did that, it sort of like opened me up to the fact that I could do quite a lot of that photography stuff. So then I took some time off and took loads of photos with no intention of selling them, but just for personal use, you know. And I got a model for the first time, because that mermaid is one of those. From one of the first models I ever took photos of. And then started taking those photos and putting them in my work. And then the guys at Shipshape started using some of the skulls.
Cool.
Couldn't let them have the models, because you run out of them real quick if you use the models up. But they started using some of the skulls for their own work, and Matt's tattooed a few. Who else? Like Steve's tattooed a few now, but not back in the day. So anyway, so people would use them, and then it kind of grew from there and became a little idea.
Super organic thing.
And then just expanded on. And if they were using them, and I think Nick Noonan used one or two.
Cool.
You know, as soon as you get that kind of feeling about it, and then the idea of, right, well, why don't tattooists have their own reference website? Like it was a ridiculous learning curve. It was beyond. Like I didn't understand what I was doing getting into it. You know what I mean? Like I knew what I was doing with the photos and editing and that kind of stuff, but just, you know, when you start something and you're like, this is a flat mountain, you know, it's just a hill, I'll be fine. And then you just opens up how fucking big that mountain is.
You're talking about this. I've never interviewed people before. I love talking, but geez, like this is crazy. Editing everything and then posting it.
Just jump in, and it gets crazier and crazier.
Absolutely, look, I won't keep you for too much longer, man. I'll let you get on to some more gin. But as this podcast is called New Zealand Tattoo, I'd love to know if there's any Kiwi artists that you're kind of keeping an eye on at the moment.
That I've got favorites. When you say keep an eye on, is that like an up and coming kind of person, or
just like, I mean, with what you're saying about, you know, transitioning into black and grey at the moment, you know, some, like if there's any artists that you're going, you know, they're doing something a little bit different, that they might have been tattooing for years, they might be someone that's working with you at the moment.
Well, I'm obsessed with Ryan Evans' work. Like I'm just obsessed with Ryan Evans. I think maybe that's one of the reasons I'm super into black and grey at the moment. It's just because I'll go and watch Ryan. But it's easy to go watch Ryan. He's like over there.
Just there.
But like even today when I finish, because I start like an hour before he does, so when I finish, he's still going, and I can go over and watch him, and I get real close, and I know he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm really really obsessed with Ryan stuff. I mean, you know Matt Wilson, eh?
Yeah.
Like I really enjoy his work.
Cool.
He's going to come join Shipshape soon, but he did a lion that I was like really, really into. So I'm really interested in watching him do that. That's in black and grey as well. So I'm really interested in watching that. I'm seeing, you know, Nathan from Shipshape.
Yeah.
So he's getting his back piece from Hamish, and I'm watching that.
Big roof, isn't it?
Yeah. So watching that develop is like really, really cool. I'm very, like at Shipshape, you're kind of a little bit sheltered because you're kind of in this realistic like bubble.
Yeah.
So once you sort of break that and you see what Hamish is doing and just watching that progress and how quickly it progresses, that's really, really interesting. So I'm very into that.
Yeah, dope. It must be like a little kind of convention type thing daily up at Shipshape, eh? Just walking around.
Yeah, basically.
Check everyone out every time you're coming back from the bathroom.
Yeah, on a full day when everyone's there, it is a mini convention, man. You'll have like 20 something people in there. Well, with the clients and terrorists.
Yeah, of course.
I cut down a little bit now.
Fine, man. Those
How about
names.
yourself? Give me some names. Give me somebody to follow that I'm unaware of.
Oh, mate, just some of the people that I've just spoken to, like just over the last couple of weeks, like in terms of like Tamoko, there's a guy called Lance Hadfield who goes under 818. His moko work at the moment is unbelievable. Like it's just beautiful with the dot work, the geometric stuff that he's including. There's a guy called Sam Clayton he's a tattooer.
Oh yeah, I know Sam.
Yeah, Sam. Yeah, so looking at his sort of pastel color realism stuff that he's doing at the moment, it's really cool. Yeah, but I just drew a small blank as well.
It's the names thing, eh?
Yeah, especially when they don't actually like. If it's there's a guy called Filthy. His name's actually Kara, but he works with Sam, and so like trying to get those words in my head as soon as he asks. But his stuff is ridiculous.
Yeah, I want him to do a seminar.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, man.
But I think we talked about it. Then he did one in Wellington, and then he's done all the COVID stuff. Well, COVID happens. But I'd love to do another set of seminars. I'd love to have Nick Noonan, because I'm pretty obsessed with his work. I always
amazing.
Yeah. So I'd love to have Nick Noonan and Filthy. And I'm going to keep calling him Filthy because it's a badass name.
It's epic. Yeah, nice. Anyway, man, let me leave you to your night, man. That'd be a cool way to end it. Thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate it. And
thanks for having me.
Oh, mate, absolute pleasure. And I'm really looking forward to hopefully seeing if you guys do some more seminar stuff up in the up at the Shipshape, man. I'd love
if you
to
talk to either of those guys, you remind them.
Done.
I asked because I've already asked.
I'm waiting to hear back from Filthy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, so just mention it, because if he enjoyed doing the Wellington one, then that'd be great to have him.
Yeah, cool, man.
If you do it on the spot and then he says yes on camera,
yeah,
he's got no choice.
Yeah, sold. Yeah.
All right,
cool, bro.
Mate. Have a good one.
You too, man. Have a good night.
Thanks, mate. Bye.
See you, bro.